Hello, everyone. I'm so happy and just like bursting with love to be speaking to my dear friend, Jesilu. We met each other in Costa Rica. She was working at a little apothecary shop, and I walked in one day wanting to buy some medicines, some herbs, and she guided me. And ever since, we kind of became friends, and we met up on the beach. I think it was spontaneously the second time we met, and then we were like, this is too crazy. We have to meet again. And so we ended up having brunch together and spending a few different times together in Nosara, Costa Rica, and it was so special. Jessie Lou is incredible. She's a strong woman who has been on her path, and she grew up in Argentina, I believe, and then has been studying yoga and Ayurveda, and is now living in Dubai and sharing her medicine with the world, her integration of her learnings. And I could not be more excited to be connecting to you today, Jessie.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. I'm so happy to be here with you. It's been a long time since we last connected.
I know it's been a long time, but I don't know, I always feel connected to you. Like, even though
Yeah.
we're not speaking, like I see sometimes your posts or, I'm like, it always just warms my heart. So I'm just really genuinely happy to be connecting.
Yeah, I know. Me too. I always feel connected to you in a way. And I believe we have friendships that even if you don't speak daily, or even if you can spend months without knowing about each other, you still feel the connection. And
Exactly.
that's how I feel about you.
So the first question I wanted to ask you is what brought you on this path? Like what made you start to learn about yoga and Ayurveda? Like what was the thing that sparked your interest? Where did this all start?
So it all started when I was 16 years old, and I just heard the word yoga. I have, like, at that time, I had no idea what it was, but the word, the vibration, something awakened in me, some kind of curiosity, or um, yeah, just like a fascination without even knowing what it was. And I just left it there. I didn't do anything about it. I didn't search for classes, anything. And one day I was at the gym where I was going at the time, and I saw that they had yoga classes, so I decided to try. And the teacher, her name is Laura, and I have such good memories of her because she was really a great teacher, and she taught me so much, and she transmitted the practice in such a way that I fell in love with it. And I just fell in love with this feeling that left me the practice. Every time I would walk back home, I would feel like I was floating, and everything was so new to me that I just was like, whoa, what is this? And yeah, and later on, I noticed some shifts in me and in my life. I stopped eating meat, not because it was a decision, but because my body stopped liking it, basically. Um, so these small changes that I was noticing in my life, I could relate those changes to the practice of yoga. Um, just in a way, I noticed that I was listening to my body in a different way, and I was just something was awakening in me. And then yeah, and then I traveled. I went to India. Well, actually, before that, before I went to India, I was doing my yoga teacher's training in Buenos Aires. And in there, there was a short course on Ayurveda massage. And again, I had no idea what Ayurveda was, but I wanted to do it. So I did that course and I studied just the basics of Ayurveda. And it was, I didn't think much about it. But when I was in India, I found a book about Yoga and Ayurveda by David Frawley. And that was the first Ayurveda book that I read. And I was fascinated by the science. And I remember sitting at a cafe in Rishikesh, studying the book on my free time, and I have such nice memories just learning about it. And um and yeah, and then my life took me to different places. I traveled, I did different things, and only recently, um last year or the year before, I studied Ayurveda more in depth. I did 2 different courses with a beautiful couple from the States that I really love and respect. And yeah, I've been integrating yoga and Ayurveda, and just those are 2 practices that I just feel so grateful for having in my life.
So how do you think yoga and Ayurveda can help someone, like if they're struggling with health problems or imbalances in their life, like how can that help them?
So they're very different, but they go together. So yoga is a spiritual science, and it's meant to expand our consciousness so that we can become aware of our true nature. And Ayurveda is the study of nature, the study of matter. It's about learning about ourselves, and also about the world in which we live. And it's about living in a way in which we are taking care of ourselves physically, mentally, emotionally, but also spiritually. So they do go hand in hand. And actually, the definition of health according to Ayurveda is very beautiful, because it's not just about having a healthy body, a healthy mind. It's also about being in touch with your true nature. It's being situated in the self with capital S. Like, the word in Sanskrit to describe health is swasthya, which means to be situated in the self. So that's something that I find so beautiful. And so, coming back to your question, anyone who feels like there's an imbalance, or just anyone who is struggling, not just physically and mentally, but also spiritually, these 2 sciences can help them to come back to the body, to come back to yourself, and to still the mind, to understand yourself in a way that you can make better decisions, decisions that will actually serve you, instead of making decisions out of an old pattern, or out of just a programming, or sometimes we make decisions that are not for our highest good. They are just a program in our mind, and we are just used to doing certain things, and we don't think much about it, and we don't stop and think if this is actually useful and helpful, or if it's not. So
And
knowing yourself at a deep level, and knowing also the world in which we live and understanding the dynamics and how we relate to the world, then we can make better decisions for ourselves.
I love your definition. I too have studied a little bit of Ayurveda and yoga, and they have been the one thing that has helped me connect to my true self so deeply. And I continue to turn to them, to still the mind, to still the body, and to get clarity in this noisy world that we live in. One of the things that you said is that it can help you make better decisions in terms of coming back to your true self. What are can you give some practical, examples of what those decisions may be? Are they in terms of food, or are they in terms of just overall, like, what kind of, what are the shifts that someone could make? Does Ayurveda spell it out in a very practical way, or is it more cosmic or like, internal? Like, can you expand on that a little bit more?
I love your question because it points out into like more practical things, and both yoga and Ayurveda are practical philosophies. So they're meant to be practiced, not to be studied by book. So thank you for asking that. And like a few examples that I could give are, so okay, according to Ayurveda, if you've studied a little, then you know about the doshas. The doshas are 3 different energies that everything in the universe is made up of. And as well as being part of nature and of creation, we are also made up of these 3 energies, which are, each one of them are composed of 2 elements. And when we think about the elements, we can think about qualities. So let's take, for example, Vata. Vata is composed of air and ether. So if you think about these 2 elements, probably you think about lightness, mobility, coldness. You can think about something very mobile and like frenetic in a way. You can think about dryness. So all of these qualities describe Vata, right? So let's take, for example, someone who wakes up feeling anxious. Maybe they notice their hands or feet are cold, their mind is very scattered, they feel ungrounded. And let's say that it is also autumn, so it's cold, it's windy, it's dry, leaves are falling out of the trees. So also in the external world, we see a Vata predominating nature. So of course, because we are interconnected, whatever is happening outside will influence our inner state. So if we take this example, some things that this person can do to bring more balance into their own life is to bring opposite qualities. So bring warmth, groundedness, steadiness, bringing oiliness. So some of those things can look like cooking a warm, very nutritious meal, or having a hot bath with some very smoothing music, lighting up some candles, sitting in meditation, in stillness, grounding yourself, maybe walking barefoot on the ground. These are all things that we can do to bring more balance into our lives. So if we understand a few principles of Ayurveda, and if we are aware enough so that we can notice how we are feeling at every moment, and also if we look outside and understand the qualities that are present outside, the time of the day, the seasons, then we can make better decisions and decide, okay, what do I need right now? Maybe I need to go for a run, but maybe I need to sit in stillness, or maybe I need to do Abhyanga, which is a self-massage, or maybe I need to, I don't know, do yoga or go for a swim. Like there's infinite ways in which we can bring balance into our lives. And it's not just the food that we eat, it's everything. It's everything that we do and how we do it.
I love that. I love that. And yeah, I feel like learning about Ayurveda was one of the things that helped me bring myself into balance. For many years, I had eczema all over my body and acne. And those are two, I think, pitta imbalances, right? When pitta comes into the skin or the displacement of fire, the fire element.
Yes.
And it was really when I started to understand, just like thinking about, okay, like I'm too hot. Like, how can I start to cool myself down internally? And then, like you said, it was not just one thing. It was like, okay, I'm going to have cooling foods and be aware of like, okay, I'm having Thai food every day. This isn't good for my system. But it's funny because I have Vata as my second kind of uh I think, and can you tell when you look at someone, can you tell like I'm Pitta, Vata or Kapha, like what do you see when you see someone? I mean, let's just say the three are Pitta, Vata and Kapha, which are the three
Yes.
predominant energies. And Kapha is the earth element, Pitta is the fire element, and Vata is like air, right? But air and ether, Kapha is like earth and water, right?
Yeah. So Kapha is earth and water, and it's the water element predominantly, and then Pitta is fire and water, but fire is the main, and Vata is air and ether. So when so your question is a little bit tricky because yes, sometimes we can tell the Prakruti of a person. Prakruti is their own constitution. Um, when we look at a person, sometimes we can tell by certain maybe there are certain things that kind of indicate which dosha is mainly predominating in their own constitution, but also sometimes it's more complex because we all live in a state of imbalance. Even if we live the most balanced lifestyle, we will always be in a state of imbalance. And this is because we are constantly interacting with the world, and we are constantly interacting with different energies. So our Prakruti, which is our own blueprint, really, it's our constitution. It's the constitution that was formed at the time of conception. But even from the time in which we are inside our mama's belly, we start to get imbalanced by the lifestyle of our mom when she was pregnant with us. So even at that time, we start to develop imbalances. And so the ideal is to come into a state of balance, which means coming back to our state of Prakruti. So knowing our Prakruti is very important because it's like where we want to get, in a way. It's like if, for example, let's say my Prakruti is Pitta and Vata, and let's say my Vata is too high, or let's say that my kapha is high. So then I need to work in a way in which I can bring myself back into a state of pitta vata
And
balance. Yeah.
you said the
So
Prakriti is formed inside the mother's belly or like at the time of conception, and then it is after that point. So how is that initially? Is it like part of your father's, part of your mother's? Like, how is it? How are the percentages? And are we always all three? I mean, I kind of know some of the answers to these questions, but I don't know them. And you state everything so beautifully and eloquently. So I'm so grateful, and I know that whoever listens to this is going to gain so much from what you're sharing. And yeah.
Well, thank you. So Prakruti is formed, yes, it's both the father's and the mother's energies combined, but also in the moment of conception, like what was the weather like, or what was the kind of like the energy or the state of balance or imbalance of the parents at the time of conception. And that makes up your Prakruti. But then if the mother is having a very hectic lifestyle all throughout pregnancy, then you can imagine there will be a Vata imbalance, right? Because if she's like nonstop doing things, that will impact the baby's energies as well. And or if she's like very lazy, that will be a more Kapha state of imbalance. So, and then of course, when we are born, it's no longer dependent of our mother, it's about the environment. And then when we grow up, the activities that we do, the foods that we eat, the way in which we basically interact with the world, and that creates imbalances. And so this is important to become aware that we never reach a state of complete balance, and we are always trying to find the balance again. It's more like a dynamic process that really never ends, and we are constantly just trying to bring ourselves back into balance. And it's like when you are, let's say you're in Vrikshasana, in a balanced asana in yoga, you notice when you are standing in just one foot, you can notice like the micro movements going on in that foot so that you can stay in balance. That's the same thing. Those micro movements need to be constantly be done to stay in a state of balance. Of course, when there's maybe we fall sick or there's like a huge imbalance, then those are not micro movements, those are big movements and big shifts that we need to make in the beginning to bring ourselves into a state of balance. But once we are there, then it's more like a micro movements that we are constantly looking for. So Ayurveda is not a very strict science for those who are healthy. It's more like it's guidelines to follow to stay in a state of health, of balance, of just joyfully experience life. Really, that's all what we're looking for. It's like is to live in a way in which we can not only enjoy life to the maximum, but like it's more than that. It's to live in a way in which we can tap into the bigger questions of life, of who am I, what am I doing here, what is this all about. To go into that discovery journey, you need to feel first and foremost well and good and happy, and yeah, just feel like you're thriving in your own body, not just existing and surviving. So, and for that, yeah, Ayurveda gives us so many tools and guidelines on how to live life, and we shouldn't take them too rigidly. If you are feeling well overall, then it's just something to become aware of and to incorporate into your life, but with ease and with enjoyment, rather than something that needs to be super strict. And it's not about that. It's about finding the balance also in how we practice Ayurveda.
So I have another question, and I love bringing it back down to the practical because I feel like, theories and things are great, but like, how does this actually apply? So I'm going to ask a personal question, and I don't mind, sharing this and hearing what you say, but like, so I hold a lot of tension, especially like chronic tension. So I have chronic pain in my left hip. Chronic, I'm using that word just to say that it's been around for a long time. I've had it for over like 10 years. And on this healing journey, I've worked with so many different modalities trying to heal my body, but this pain just doesn't seem to want to leave. So, what would Ayurveda say for something like that? And what could I do to improve my health? If I wanted to move beyond, this, or is it just being an acceptance, or what could be the root cause of that's causing this kind of like imbalance or pain in my body?
So the first thing that comes to my mind is to tell you that any kind of pain, of physical pain, is vata showing up, especially articulations, bones, all of that is vata related. So the first thing that I would say is focus more on a vata pacifying lifestyle, which means slowing down, having moments of stillness for yourself every day, making sure that you have a routine around meals and around sleeping times, making sure that your main meal is at midday and that you have grounding foods, maybe something that's warm and with good qualities of oil. And also focusing on Abhyanga, self-massage with sesame oil, and trying to do that at least, I would say, 5 times a week, and really focus on the hip area and try to give it, that area, more focus, more love. And also, I believe hips are a seat of emotions. So there may be certain emotions that are stuck there, maybe even for a long time, and sitting and questioning yourself what is there for you to look at, to see, and to be released. And with yoga, you could do more hip openers, but very gently and going with the breath. So taking your breath into that area and really exhaling into that area and allowing space to open up and allowing the energy to move and to just circulate. And yeah, hopefully in that way you create more space and more awareness, and you allow those energies to be released, allow them to move, allow them to transform, allow yourself to see what's there present. And yeah, I believe that everything that we experience in life is just lessons, really, and nothing is a mistake in life. Nothing is an error. Everything is here present to show us something that we need to learn, something that we need to become aware of. And when we treat life in that way, when we see life as a great teacher and we see experiences as great teachers, then we are in a position in which we can actually learn. We humble down towards life and we accept that everything is here to show us, to teach us, and really for our highest good. So yeah, everything that stays present because we still need to look at them.
It's so beautiful the way that you described it. And, you know, I did have an Abhyanga practice, and I think maybe some people have never heard that word before, but Abhyanga, from what I understand, is body oil massage that's done in a form of like self-love. And it's usually done before bathing, right? If I've understood it correctly. What time of day, is there a specific time of day that you recommend doing it?
I recommend in the morning. So before you take a shower, you just do Abhyanga, which is a self-massage with oil. Depending on your constitution and your state of balance or imbalance, you will choose the oil accordingly. If you have a Vata or Kapha imbalance, then sesame oil. If you have a Pitta imbalance, it can be coconut oil. If you have a Kapha imbalance as well, you can use mustard seed oil. And so the whole idea is that you do circular motions on the articulations and long strokes on the long bones. You start with your head and then you move down all the way down to your feet. And then you keep the oil for like 20 minutes. Then you can have a shower and move on with your day. And it's a beautiful practice. Like you said, it's a practice of self-love. The Sanskrit word for oil is the same as for love. That's a beautiful indication of what Abhyanga really is. It's a self-love practice.
Yeah, and I know that when I did Abhyanga regularly, I would immediately notice like all the inflammation in my body just like come down, like um and I would always feel so much more balanced. And I don't know, I really enjoyed it. I would always do it later in the day, but I'm going to try to do it like you suggested, first thing in the morning, and see if that shifts things. And I think my hip has taught me so much about love and acceptance. And I think that it is an area where, like, the more and more I love it, I realize that I'm loving myself just the way I am. And it's been a super helpful thing to carry with me. And yeah, I mean, it's like I want to help it now. It's not like, oh, why are you here? But it's like, how can I help you? You know, it's like the relationship has shifted a lot. Instead of being like, you're an annoying thing that I want you to go away, to like, what are you teaching me? To more of that, like, you know, looking at it as a lesson or as a teacher. I had one yoga teacher who used to always say, your body is your best friend and the wisest teacher that you'll ever have. And I really do think that our bodies show us so much always, you know?
Yeah, that's so beautiful. Yeah. And I love the way in which you explain how you went from, oh, this is so annoying, I want you to go away, to I love you and I accept you, and also I want to help you. Yeah, that's just like really beautiful.
So one question I did have with something that you said in your response, you were talking about how during the yoga practice you can send the breath there and then kind of exhale and breathe through the space and then ask if there's anything. Now, when you have that kind of internal conversation, do you find that that type of conversation is you just being lost in your thoughts, or is it different when it's done in this mindful way and it's actually getting to something that's within the subconscious or something that's deeper? When, like, what distinguishes mind chatter from that more profound knowledge and wisdom that's coming from that internal guidance? Like how can you distinguish the two voices or the internal, you know?
Yeah. So first of all, I would say during the yoga practice, just focus simply on sending the breath, breathing into the area and exhaling and releasing. Then the questioning part, I would do it more when you are in a state of meditation. So just sitting quietly, allowing your mind to become still. And then when you find yourself in a more meditative state, then you can ask the question and see what arises. Maybe nothing arises in the moment, but it's just the act of listening and opening up to the possibility of having that question been answered from your own body that will open up to a possible answer. And if it does come, if you do hear certain voices, how can you distinguish the mind chatter from the intuition? Well, that's more like, I would say, if you're wondering if it's mind chatter or intuition, then probably it is mind chatter. If you have absolutely no doubt that it is the intuition, then it probably is the intuition. So I would say, as a general rule, if you have any doubts, maybe try to go a little bit deeper and quiet the mind even more. But yeah, this is a question that I always struggle. I also struggle with, you know. I think we all have these conflicting thoughts, like, oh, is this just another thought, or is this more of an intuition, or is it coming from a wiser part of myself on?
And is there like certain, like, do you find yourself like you kind of just go straight into a deep meditation and you're able to connect to that wisdom? Or are there like certain practices? Do you have to have been sitting for a certain amount of time, or does it vary? Like, how do you know that you're deep within yourself, connecting to that wisdom? Like, or what rituals do you set up to help you connect to that aspect? How often do you do it? Like, I'm just curious about your
Yeah,
practices to connect to that intuition or that internal wisdom.
I almost always begin with pranayama. So connecting to the breath, doing different pranayama techniques to help my mind quiet and become more calm. Sometimes I also incorporate some chanting, which also clears out the mind and allows it to become more still. And then I just find myself in a more meditative state. So I wouldn't go as far as saying that I have reached a meditative state yet. It's a very deep and profound state to reach, but it's the practice, it's the daily practice. And how often do I do it? Every day, at least once a day, sometimes more, depending on what my day looks like, depending on how I feel, depending on what I need. But yeah, it always starts with pranayama, and then I move into the meditation. And how do I know if I'm there? Well, you just feel it. You feel you just feel a stillness. Yeah, there's really, I don't think there's many words to describe. The feeling is more like, if I would have to describe it, it's more for me a stillness. And yeah. just, yeah.
Beautiful. Yeah.
Mm.
And like you said, it's a practice. And so it's kind of like showing up every day and committing to that practice. And um, do you you said earlier that yoga and Ayurveda, everything is about coming back and trying to understand our true self. And so my question is, like, what is this true self? Like, what the heck are we doing here? And like, what is this true self that we're trying to do? And then later in the conversation, you said something about we just need to live joyfully. So like, how do we navigate our human experience and our true self, basically? It's kind of like, what's the purpose of life is what I'm asking.
Well, I think there are so many answers to that. I think, in a way, the purpose of life is the purpose and the meaning that you give to life. Maybe there's not just one meaning or one purpose. Maybe nothing makes sense, who knows, and each one of us gives it meaning. But I think that for me, the meaning of life and the purpose of life is to become one with creation, basically, one with the source of everything. I believe that when I speak about our true self, I refer to the consciousness that is a part of the whole. So to me, there's oneness and there's one source from where all of creation comes from, and we all and everything that exists is part of that creation. And so when I speak about our true self, I refer to that aspect of ourselves that is connected to the source of life. What else was your question?
Yeah, no, I think you answered it. It's like trying to understand what that true self is. And I think your definition of explaining this connection that we have to this greater consciousness is, and to be in like complete alignment with it, it seems like, or connection or union, or,
Yeah.
it's a beautiful thing that I feel like we kind of all aspire to be. And, uh, you know, it's through this journey that we kind of peel off all these layers of separation, I feel like, that we have come to know and think is real. And then once we remove all those layers of separation, we realize that our oneness with everything, everyone, supreme consciousness, and our role in this experience of life, so
Yeah, yeah, definitely. So
uh,
many layers.
so many layers, so many layers. Has there been something that, this is just going back to your personal journey now, that was like, do you want to share a moment of profound healing, and how you move through challenge? I think, we all go through so much challenge, whether it's physical, mental, uh, I think physical and mental, or spiritual. So can you share a moment of challenge that you've had and how you've moved through it, either using yoga practices and Ayurvedic practices or some other practices, and how you overcame that challenge?
Sure. I can share. Mm, so I can share a healing which is very recent, and I'm still moving through that healing journey. I'm still healing from it, and it's a mix of things, but it's mostly heartbreak, and the way in which I've been dealing with it is mostly just being there for myself, holding space for myself, allowing myself to feel, connecting to my emotions, connecting to how I'm feeling at every moment, without distracting myself from feeling, without making excuses or justifying or trying to analyze things, just feeling and allowing those emotions to flow and to be expressed, really. And I find that it has been the thing that has been helping me heal. Simply being there for myself, holding myself, and allowing myself to feel. Um, and of course, some tools that I've used in the process are from yoga, just sitting in meditation, using different techniques, using pranayama, breath work to come back to myself, going out in nature. For me, being at the beach near the ocean is one of the most healing practices that I can do, and I'm so grateful to be near the beach. So yeah, nature, yoga, being gentle to myself, giving myself love, and acceptance, and holding space for whatever comes up. Journaling, so many things, so many tools. But yeah.
So I have a question in regards to that. So like I've also, gone through a parting of ways, and that has, come with so many emotions. And, I'll have moments where I feel so like I'm drowning in my grief, and I'll feel such strong feelings of that. Is it I wonder the extent to which our thoughts are creating our reality, and if I'm perpetuating the sadness. So, or am I in a point of like power to just choose different thoughts? Okay, I'm noticing that this thought is creating, like, making me feel sad and feel a lot of grief. Should I just, course correct and think differently, or am I, too much in my head? What's the balance between like feeling your emotions, but also, course correcting from that like perspective of like, okay, these thoughts are actually in somehow related to this grief. um what would you say to that?
That's a beautiful question. I would say, when you feel, and whatever it is, and allow yourself to feel. But then, of course, we don't want to become attached to certain emotions. Of course, we don't want to become attached to so-called negative emotions, even though they're not negative. But this more difficult side of the spectrum of emotions that we experience as humans, that they're uncomfortable, they're uneasy, they're not nice. So of course we don't want to become attached to those, but even to happy emotions, to like feelings of joy and happiness, because if we create attachment to them, the nature of emotions is that they move, they flow, it's like water, and it's all the time changing. So if we also create attachment to them, then we will suffer eventually. So it's about feeling, allowing the emotions to flow and to just flow like a river and cleanse your subtle body, and then let them go. Just let them go. And if you notice that certain thoughts create certain emotions that you're ready to let go of, you don't want to keep experiencing those emotions over and over again. You've learned whatever they were showing you. If you notice that your mind is coming back to those thoughts, of course, using your awareness to refocus, maybe focus on the things that you feel grateful for, focus on the love that's already present in your life, focus on whatever it is that you can feel grateful for, because gratefulness is truly one of the most powerful ways to like rise up your vibration. And so yeah, I think it's a balance, is allowing yourself to feel when you feel, but without holding on to the emotions, without holding on to the stories attached to the emotions, without overly identifying yourself with the stories that we tell ourselves about those emotions, or the stories that keep creating those emotions. Just taking distance, but also feeling.
Beautiful. So
Yeah.
beautiful. I know we have been going for quite a while now, so I just want to ask if there's anything else that you want to share. And I definitely would love for you to share at some point your way that people can reach out to you and connect with you. I know that you offer consultations and you are such a wealth of wisdom. So I know that, people are struggling with different things, and I would love for the people who follow this or find this to be able to benefit from your wisdom, and from your life experience and from your gifts, to help them on their path.
Yeah, thank you. No, yeah, I just want to thank you for this conversation, and so beautiful to share our journeys and what we've learned and what we are learning. Um, and yeah, if anyone wants to get in touch with me, I would love to um, know about all of you, and you can do that through my Instagram and email. And I think that we can leave that on the description or somewhere where people can see that. And but yeah, just thank you so much, and I love what you're doing. I love seeing your journey. It's so inspiring and it's so beautiful, and I'm so grateful to have you in my life.
Likewise, I feel very much the same way. Okay, I'm going to ask one last question then to close it out. This is another thing that I'm also thinking a lot about. And I know that you're such a wisdom keeper and you're so intuitive and you're so, I don't know, just tapped in. So I know you're the right person to ask. And yeah, I think it's just a beautiful way we can end the conversation. So, how can I keep my heart open? I feel like the world is crazy and so many experiences make me want to like close my heart and hide and like not be seen. And um, like, what's your advice to keeping the heart open and like staying on this path? And like, yeah, like I just sometimes just want to go and like sleep and like not be seen. And I would love your thoughts on this.
Mm, wow. I'm not sure I'm the right person to answer to that. But I'll try. I try my best. So how can we keep our hearts open? Oof, I know the world is crazy. And there are so many different energies out there, and sometimes it's so difficult to stay open to life when it's so overwhelming. Um, I think, well, what I feel is that having those spiritual practices, whatever that looks like for you, and for each person, it will look like something completely different. But having a practice, a daily practice, a sadhana that really connects you to yourself and to your heart, and that grounds you, and that centers you, and that makes you feel good and at peace and calm and clear. Having those daily practices, even if it's just 5 minutes a day, um, it's a way to keep our hearts open to all of life. Because I think that when we're trying or we want to stay open to life, that means that we are staying open in full acceptance of everything that is, without judgment, without um, wanting to change anything, just full acceptance. And in that unconditional love, where everything is accepted for what it is, and keeping the heart open even to those things that hurt us, to those things that make us feel deeply hurt, um, loving those things as well, and that begins within ourselves. It doesn't start by projecting that love to the outside. It starts by creating that love within and for ourselves, and that full acceptance for ourselves, um, in every minor detail of our life and of our existence. And then from that place, then we can give love, because that's what we are.
I love you so much. Such a beautiful way to end the conversation. Thank you,
I
Jesse.
love it
And
too.
until we meet again, I know we will. And you know, it's you're one of those people that when I met you, I was like, we're gonna be in each other's lives forever. Like I just knew that. Like we are
Yeah,
connected somehow, you know, soul sisters or something.
yeah,
And I
I
just count
agree.
my blessings every time I think of you and our
Mm.
interactions. And every time I learn so much from you. I'm so humbled and blessed to know you, and you're an incredible teacher and wisdom keeper. And I honor you. And I'm just so, so grateful. I'm like bursting with gratitude. And I know that this conversation is going to benefit those who it needs to benefit. And I really hope that those who are at a roadblock, you know, in their healing journey, that need that outside perspective, you know, even when we spoke in Costa Rica, I remember we had conversations and you did a consult with me, and it was just so helpful to have someone. And I know you do your work with so much love and care, and you deeply care about other people. And you know, and sometimes people just need that coach or that someone to hold their hand and help them through this journey, you know. And I think that's what we're all here to do, is walk each other home and help each other out. So
Yes. Thank you so much, sister. Thank you so much for your words and for your presence and for your wisdom. Um, yeah, thank you for being.
yes, thank you for being. I love you.